Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So you know I do teardown videos from time to time, and this is another one of those. I heard a little bit of a rumor that the 2007, 2008 Squier bullets were a little more full featured, or at least full thickness, than some of the other bullets that I may have torn down in the past. And so I thought we'd take a look at this one here today. This one is a 2008, but it's in really great shape, even has the plastic on the pickguard. So I'm going to go ahead and take the strings off and we can take some measurements. Okay, with the strings out of the way, I think I'd like to look at the electronics first before we dive into the body. So I just wanted to go ahead and hook up an ohm meter, and the bridge pickup is reading at about 5.5, 5.6. Middle pickup is reading almost exactly 5.5, and the neck pickup is right in that 5.0 range. So that's pretty typical of a sort of modern ceramic style pickup that are in a lot of these Squiers. And I'm guessing that's what we'll find when we open it up. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this pickguard off. Quickly before we lift this thing up, I can tell already that the bridge and the middle pickup have the same pole spacing, but the neck pickup is a little bit narrower, and I think that these two are 52 millimeter and this one is a 50. Anyway, let's look inside. Okay, well, it's a single layer white pickguard. There's only partial shielding. The whole thing is not shielded like some of the models you'll see. There is shielding paint in the cavity. I'll show you the routing in just a bit. But the pickups themselves are SEM pickups that are dated 2008, which is interesting to me because I don't normally see any dates of any kind on very many Squiers. And of course it's got mini pots. I suspect that those are 500K because almost all of them are, but we can verify that pretty quickly. No, turns out I was wrong. So these mini pots are actually 250K, which is closer to the original Strat spec. As far as the switch goes, it's got a PCB style, or what I sometimes call a breadboard style switch. All of the wiring inside is shielded, including the wiring for the jack itself. And there is shielding paint in the cavity like I mentioned. And the routing is what I would consider to be an SSH, although the middle in these is sometimes a little bit oversized like this one. And the other thing I would note is that there is no well in the side of the humbucker area for a deep screw. Sometimes on these thinner bodies, using a full-size style switch if you upgrade is an issue, and this one actually has a little bit of an extra cutout to give a little bit more depth in that area. I can't tell at this point if this is a plywood body or an actual solid wood body. So let's take off the neck and see what we find. So this one, like a lot of Squiers, has been painted all the way through the neck cavity here, but you can tell in the corners where it's been clearanced a little bit that it is a solid wood body. It's difficult to tell what kind of wood it is, but it's definitely a lighter wood. Let's take a quick look at the tremolo cavity. Well, this is kind of unique for a Squier in that the tremolo cavity is actually shielded as well. It's not totally necessary, but it's kind of nice to see. Otherwise in here, it's got the normal claw that's grounded, 3 springs, and a small block. We'll take a quick look at body thickness. Alright, it's not quite what I would consider to be full thickness, but I know why people were telling me that these were. This one measures out at about 1.69 inches with the finish, where a standard Strat would be about 1.75 inches without the finish. So it's not as thin as some of the bullets that are on the market. It's probably the thickest of the bullet line. I'm going to go ahead and grab the loaded weight of this body as well, just to give you an idea. Alright, on my somewhat inaccurate scale, it weighs about 5.8 pounds, and that's without a couple of the screws and the back plate, but it definitely comes in under 6 pounds. Let's move on now to checking out that neck. Alright, well, as far as this neck goes, I can say that it's a nice piece of rosewood and that the inlays are actually some sort of pearloid, which not all of them are. Sometimes you'll see more of just a white dot. Of course it's 21 frets, and I would classify the fret wire as kind of a medium size, so medium width, medium height. Radius wise, I'm going to guess that it's a 9.5, and that is the case. Let's check out the width of the nut. So the width of the nut is probably around 42 millimeters. It's just a hair over, but it's not quite enough to call it 43. So this is a wider nut than the Affinities might have been in this period. And as far as the heel goes, this heel measures out at 2.23 inches, which is 56 millimeters and change. So that makes that a fairly wide heel for a Squier Stratocaster. If we take a closer look at the headstock here, we can see a basic black logo, Squier by Fender, Bullet Strat. And we can also see 2 string trees, vintage style tuners or vintage size tuner holes, and the diagonal pattern diamondback tuners on the back. Again, this is a Crafted in China model 2008. And this neck is maple, but there's no skunk stripe on the back. And it's just a very light, almost a satin finish. So it's got a very natural feel to it. Obviously we have the small Strat headstock, and the overall weight of this neck came in on my scale at about 1.8 pounds. If you combine that with a 5.7 or 5.8 pound body, that means this bullet strat weighs in at about 7.5 pounds. And I've just about taken about everything I can apart on this strat, but I did notice it has a little bit of a loose jack here. So I'll go ahead and take apart this jack plate and we'll see if there's anything surprising in there. Well, nothing really shocking in here, except it is a shielded cavity, so I didn't expect that. Otherwise, it's a pretty standard Squier jack, which is kind of a thin metal jack, and also a fairly thin jack plate. And just to mention everything I can think to possibly mention about this thing, it's got pretty standard Squier Strat buttons. They don't quite have as sharp of an edge as some of the modern Squiers that I've seen, but they are still pretty thin metal. And the saddles themselves look like they're just regular old cast metal saddles. Alright, well, I like to use these kind of parts for projects of mine, and having all these specs helps me out. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope it helps you out as well. If it does, give me a like, leave me a comment. I always appreciate all the feedback that I get. If you want to help out my channel, look in my description for Amazon and eBay links that you can use. And anytime you use those links, it helps me out, but it doesn't cost you any extra. If you want to talk with some other like-minded guitar hobbyists, be sure to check out Hack's Guitar Hobby group on Facebook. The link to that is also in my description. And as always, thanks to all you subscribers. Thanks, and I'll see you guys next time.